All right, so I have this question, and that question is, what would you do if you found out that the entire way that you thought about digital marketing and social media strategy was wrong? So in the past, probably 18 months to 2 years, since starting this business actually, since we started JMD, I've been really thinking about the way we design digital marketing strategies, right? Particularly social media, community-based strategies. And, you know, a client walks in the door and they want to launch a huge community, or they want to come up with some crazy content that goes viral, or they want whatever this big objective is that they have in mind, and they come and they go like, what is it? Or how do we do that? Or whatever. And if you think about the way marketing agencies or the marketing world used to work, let's go back in time a little bit here, it was all about that big idea. It was that big campaign. And whatever that big idea was the foundation of, that would go to billboard, TV, radio, basically all those traditional channels. That's where they would put that big idea. And it would work because the consumer would see it, it would resonate, and was like, cool, that's exciting. And the way that brands came up with that is that they would go into this big brainstorming session, they would do some research, and they would come up with this big elaborate campaign, and they would go live on a hard date. And that's still the way most of our sort of clients operate as well. And I work with small clients and some pretty big brands, even government. And they still work around this same methodology of, let's think about the big idea, and then let's see if we can scale that on every possible channel, including social. But I think there's a bigger opportunity right now, and this is something that we've sort of designed. We've designed a framework that helps you to understand how social is different, and how social lets you execute strategy with less risk and more certainty, right? Because the challenge with those big campaigns is, when it works, it's amazing, but when you miss the mark, you've burnt months in strategy development, you've burnt dollars in marketing, and you've burnt, like, time. Like, a lot of time. That full phase is ridiculous. So this is something that I believe in. It's actually something that I think is pretty important. I think that if you're a brand looking at advancing a social strategy, or if you're just trying to build your own personal brand, that the foundations of this model scale for you. So let's go and draw it now. All right, so let's think about this from a traditional standpoint. So the traditional model was actually very conventional, and it made sense. So you would start here. That's where you would take a brief. So let's call that brief. Right? The brief might go for a day, a meeting, a week for, you know, the client to go and prepare some insight. So that is a period of time there. We'll call that a day. Then this would then go to a marketing agency, and that marketing agency would say, okay, we're going to respond to your brief, we're going to give you a rough idea, we're going to give you a scope of work, we're going to tell you roughly what we're going to deliver. That's going to take them, it might be a day, a week, a couple of weeks, that's how long that would take, and that's where they're going to tell you roughly how complex the project is actually going to be. We'll call that scope, and we'll call that 1 week. Now, from here, if the client accepts it, right, we assume that we do get acceptance from the client, we then move into a brainstorming phase, all right? So this is the creative strategy phase. This is where we think about it for a little while and decide what we're going to actually do. That could take anything from a week to a month to 3 months to 6 months, right? This is the big idea brainstorming, and as part of this phase, we'll call it brainstorm. As part of that phase, that might include going out and doing some research, talking to some customers, right? They might run a focus group. But in that phase, they're going to come up with an idea or a couple of ideas for the client, and they're going to say, you know, this is the direction that we want to take it. Let's assume that takes 6 weeks. And in there, that includes some research. Assume the client accepts it and they're going to go ahead. Then they move into launch. This is game on. This is, we're rolling it out nationally and we're pretty sure this is going to be awesome. We're really happy with it. We're really happy with the work the agency's done. Let's go ahead with it. Then it moves into ongoing, right? Launch. And that could be a 3-month campaign, 6-month campaign, an ongoing campaign, who knows? And that's a way that people have looked at marketing for forever, right? This is the traditional view, and it's the way that worked. You would go to an agency that understood the space, that knew what they were talking about, that had worked in industry before, and this is the approach they would run through. It was stable, it was consistent, and for all intensive purposes, it worked. But I think the world's changed a little bit, and what social's done is it's enabled us to really change the way we think about this. So we've gone and we've got, okay, how do you build tech startups? Well, you don't build tech startups like that. You build tech startups by designing an MVP, a minimum viable product, and then launching. And as soon as you've launched, you get some learnings, and then you iterate and you change the direction of the product based on what you've learned from real customers. But this linear process doesn't allow for that. This linear process says the creative brainstorming phase is key. When we've done that, because we're smart and you pay us well, therefore we will get a good result, when we launch it'll all be awesome. But there's so much risk associated with that because no one knows, it hasn't gone to market. So this is the way I believe that marketing should be done. This is the way I believe that you should be thinking about social. We split this into two phases. Phase one is your strategy and KPI definition phase. So it's literally in one meeting, understand need. That's understand need of the client, of the business, of the personal brand, understand what they're trying to achieve, and understand what their customer, what their viewer, what their consumer also needs. And then from there, that goes into KPI definition. And that's key performance indicators. So if we are successful, what will we achieve? How many conversions will we get? What will we accomplish? What does success look like? So that's defining your KPIs. Then you've basically gone, all right, one day and perhaps another 2 days, let's just say for the purpose of the example, to really define what we're trying to accomplish based specifically on the need. Once we've got those on paper, and that could be as simple as a couple of post-it notes, we then move into phase two. Now, this is where traditionally a brand may have gone into the creative process for 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, and gone, let's design the perfect strategy. I don't believe that works with social. So here's my approach here. My approach here is to now develop the hypothesis. Now, when you develop the hypothesis, you're saying, I believe that X piece of content will drive X result. I believe that this message is stronger than these other two messages, right? It's what you would identify in that full brainstorming process, but there's a differentiator here. And the differentiator is that you develop a hypothesis in 10 minutes, in an hour. Within one day, you've developed a series of hypotheses, right? This is not based on knowing, this is based on us taking our best possible guess one day. From there, we roll this into what we call test. Now, test is the most exciting phase. Test is where you go live, where you actually have a message in market for someone to see, to experience, and to engage with. And this is not a focus group with 10 people around a table. This is markets at scale. Now let's talk through a tangible example for what test actually could mean. Let's say you are trying to build your own personal brand, and you're trying to reach a very particular market segment who's excited about you and what you do in your industry. What we would do here is we would go, all right, we've got 3 different variations of message that we think is going to be engaging to this audience. We think that audience cares about saving money, saving time, or being the best, being perceived as the best in their market. Say that's the 3 things that your possible market could want. And you know that you can help them in any one of those 3 things. So what we do is we develop 3 pieces of content. Imagine they're images. Photo of a person, let's just say as an example. And we use the 3 different messages over the top of that image. Then using something like Facebook targeting, we literally go, all right, we're trying to reach males and females between the ages of 25 and 32 in a particular geographic area. We set up those specifications and we say, of that total population, there's this huge audience that we've decided is, they're all people, by the way, not balloons. And then what we do is we go, all right, let's show this message to that segment, this message to that segment, this message to that segment, and let's see which message was most engaging for that audience. And we get the best thing about social is we get those learnings instantly. This does not take weeks, this does not take months. We get these learnings within an hour of starting, and by throwing a little bit of budget behind it, and I'm talking about small budgets, not big budgets, you know, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100, not $30,000 or $50,000, we start to learn in real time. That's incredibly valuable. From the testing, and just say we test over 1 week, we then move into refine and execute. Now, refine and execute literally means taking the learnings from the test, making a decision, and then rolling that back into the development of a hypothesis. So, I go, wow, okay, of those 3 messages, message 3 was 3 times more engaging than message 1 and 2. That is a valuable learning. I believe that based on message 3, here are 3 different directions we could go into on an ongoing basis. So we then go back in, we develop hypothesis, and we start again. And the beauty of this approach is we never ever stop iterating, which is why we've called this the iterative learning cycle. This does not stay linear, this continues to evolve. So you go through phase 1, you understand need, you define your KPIs, then you move directly into phase 2, which is develop hypothesis, do it in a day, start testing it immediately with a target market, and then refine, and refine, and refine. And that continues to evolve literally forever. Now, that's pretty messy, which is why what we've done is we've actually gone and developed a visual tool that steps through this exact process. If you tweet me at Matthew Kelly or leave a comment or wherever you see this, just get in touch. I'm more than happy to send this to you. We'll probably even build out new versions of it that are less branded. But this is the approach. Phase 1, strategy development, KPI definition, rolls into developing hypothesis, testing and refining and executing. And that never ever stops. This is, I believe, a new way of thinking about marketing. It is using the lean, iterative cycles that are now used in startup businesses, and I'm really, really passionate about this as an approach. This is super unique and it's super interesting. Now, the beauty of this approach is that it works every single time. I'm now rolling out this strategy with all of our clients. That includes national level, publicly listed brands that, if you're watching this video, you've probably heard of, right through to very small startups. Now, the lead time, the time between each phase, can differ. And it differs because you might need to build technology. That adds a pretty big variable, right? If you're doing something that's never been done before with technology, then I totally can appreciate that that makes this a longer process and can make it more like the traditional linear format. However, in most community building content marketing exercises, this works. It's about tracking metrics and making smart decisions, which I love. Now, for a more tangible example, I'm working with a big national brand. They do a lot of government work and they were expanding to a new geographic region in the Australian market. They're a huge brand in very, very dedicated metro areas, but as they were starting to move out, they found out they were less known. That was a challenge for the brand. It was a challenge for the way that they were being perceived in the market. So what we did was we said, well, rather than going and telling everyone how important you are, how big you are, how meaningful you are, if they've never heard of you, then you actually mean nothing to them at all. There's no point telling them how great you are. So we went through this exact process. We came up with 10 key messages, put it over 10 images, literally just very basic micro content. And we just started to literally get it out to a couple of thousand people in each market. And just go, let's see if that's engaging, let's see if that's engaging, let's see if that's engaging. And what they did was, they took those learnings, went through 3 cycles and went, wow, that one and that one were the most engaging, let's do more of them. And sort of designed this funnel as a result of that. It's worked incredibly well, and they've taken those learnings, and that key message that we defined was the most engaging message that we determined over a couple of weeks is now on billboards, on the side of buses, it's been in TV ads, it's been rattled off on radio. They've used it across their entire campaign. It's because they were able to learn about what was engaging incredibly quickly, which is something you can't do through the traditional format. So get in touch if you want to get an example of that. Otherwise, design your own, because why not? And let me know what you think. See you later.